Hey everybody, this is Hashim of the Smartphone Champ from thesmartphonechamp.com. Today we'll be doing a review of the AT&T Galaxy Note, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. The first thing that you'll notice when you pick the phone up is it is a large phone. It's not uncomfortably large, but it definitely is large to the point where one-handed operation can be a little bit tedious. Like as you can see, trying to reach that upper left corner is a bit of a task. It's definitely going to require a little bit of two-handed operation at times to get things done. Now, I don't think they designed this phone for one-handed operation. I don't really think they had that in mind, and that's kind of reinforced by the S Pen. You don't put an S Pen on a device that you expect one-handed use on, so I won't hold that against the device. Now, going and taking a look around the device, at the bottom of it you have your capacitive keys, menu, home, back, and search. Coming around, you have a nice trim that gives it that high-end look. It also feels pretty solid. It's definitely got a nice feel to it. If we go ahead and pop the back off, back is plastic in typical Samsung fashion, but it doesn't feel cheap. It feels nice and solid. It feels like a high-end device when you're holding it. Of course, you've got your battery here. You've got your SIM card slot, micro SD slot, you know, the usual suspects that you would expect. So we'll go ahead and pop that battery cover back on. And we'll go ahead and get it booted up. Now, for the video, we went ahead and set the device up somewhat so that you wouldn't have to go through and see the initial boot up. So this would be like a normal boot up that you would see out in the real world in real use. Okay, now one of the first things that you're going to see, obviously, when you're using the phone is the lock screen. The lock screen is a little bit different than what you might see on some other devices. Basically, you can swipe the screen from any place on the screen in any direction and unlock it. If you hold your finger there, you'll see the unlock comes up, the unlock icon, and you can move in any direction. So you have the 4 directions there. So we'll just pick one. It doesn't really matter. You don't really have to hold the screen down. You can do it pretty quickly just like that. And I'll get back to that later. I'll revisit that. The interface is pretty much your typical touch whiz that you're used to seeing now. If you're someone who's familiar with the Galaxy S2, it's not too much different than that. So it's pretty much run of the mill as far as that is concerned. Swiping through the home screens it's definitely pretty fluid. I haven't experienced any lag or anything like that in swiping. Now, one thing that I definitely noticed right off the bat when I went into the app drawer is this phone has a large amount of bloatware, and I mean a massive amount. We've only installed 2 apps on this phone, yet it has AllShare on it, Amazon Kindle, AT&T Code Scanner, AT&T Family, AT&T Navigator, AT&T Ready to Go, featured apps here, Crayon Physics, Live TV, Kaiser Air, Media Hub, and more. I won't bore you guys with the full list of the bloatware, but this is just page 1. There's a lot more on page 2, and it even spills its way over to page 3. Again, like I said, we've only installed 2 apps, so I guess you could say technically it's 2 pages of bloatware, but still, that's a ridiculous amount of bloatware. Fortunately, it does not bog the phone down or anything like that, since this has a TouchWiz overlay, which is pretty lightweight when compared to some other overlays on the market, like a HTC Sense type overlay. So all in all, I guess the bloatware is fine to a degree, depending on how you look at it. Looking at the browser, I was actually pretty surprised about the browser. I expected it to be a little more responsive than what it was. It's by no means slow or anything like that, but it does have its occasional hiccups, and I'll be demonstrating that. Let's go ahead and pull up Engadget. Well, actually, let's clear this cache first. And we'll clear the cookies while we're at it. Okay, so we're on Engadget, and we'll go ahead and swipe down, and let's bring up the desktop version. Now the browser overall, it's a decent speed browser. I've seen faster. It doesn't seem to browse quite as fast as browsers like the Galaxy Nexus, maybe the iPhone 4S, but the browser overall still seems to be pretty decent. I have no complaints about its speed. Now here we are on Engadget, and the scrolling is pretty smooth. I can't complain about it. Now there have been times when I was playing with this phone that I had some occasional hiccups on this page. So that's one gripe that I do have about the browser, but it's not showing itself now. Now the zooming in and out is nice and fluid. There are no hiccups there. I haven't experienced any hiccups with it. It's just doing its job. So opening up another link on Engadget. It's still loading, but as you can see, it does a pretty decent job. You do see some occasional checkerboarding, like you just saw there. And typically when I see that, that's about when I do get the hiccups that I experience in the browser, even though they're not showing themselves right now. We'll go to the smartphonechamp.com. And again, as you can see, the browser is moving at a pretty acceptable speed. It's by no means lightning fast or anything like that. You know, several months ago I might have considered it lightning fast, but after, you know, experiencing the browser on the iPhone 4S and on the Galaxy Nexus, it's kind of hard for me to say that now about this browser, even though it's very serviceable. So let's zoom out a little bit, and here we are on the smartphonechamp.com, and we'll just do some scrolling there, and as you can see, it runs nice and smooth. So we haven't seen the hiccups that I was speaking of earlier, but I can assure you they do show up at times. Now, another thing that this phone is very capable of is streaming HD movies. Now, for me, this is my litmus test on how powerful a phone is or is not. Many phones struggle when doing this. This phone is not one of them. This phone handles it pretty fine. So we'll just pick one. And while we wait for it to load, here we are. And then, of course, that's an advertisement going there. Oh, we didn't want to do that. There we are.
Icy cool flavor. In a delicious.
Okay, we'll just let the advertisement finish first.
Polar ice from Extra.
And that's an HD movie streaming. Trying to get it to go into full screen. There we go. It didn't want to cooperate initially.
They got us out here using planes to mop floors, fellas. Get your head up, son. You're fighter pilots.
11 o'clock.
And as you can see, it plays just fine. Let me turn that down. As you can see, it plays just fine. You know, it's not hiccuping or, you know, starting and stopping like you'll see on some other dual core phones, you know, of lower quality. So I definitely have no complaints. It's a great multimedia experience, and the screen is phenomenal. It may not show up as well in this video, but I can assure you in person it looks great. Now, one of the other features of the phone is the S Pen. So we'll go ahead and pop it out. And the S Pen, in my opinion, is a little bit gimmicky. It doesn't seem to be very useful for the average person. Now, if you're somebody who works in a particular field that may be able to take advantage of it, then it may prove to be quite useful. But for the average person, I just don't see the average person using the S Pen very often. So we'll go ahead and do a little demonstration of it here. We'll go back to the smartphonechamp.com. Now, the S Pen gives you a few different features. For example, you can take a screenshot with it. You can bring up quick memos. You can go back a screen. You can bring up a menu. You can go to the home screen using the S Pen. So let's start with the screenshot. You'll basically just, if you look at the S Pen, there's a button on it. You'll push that button and hold down on the screen, and it'll take a screenshot and take you to a screen where you can edit it. Now I can draw on it. I can crop, well, just draw a lasso around a certain part there, hit done, and it'll give me just that. We'll cancel that and go back. And you can change the colors of the writing that you are using when you're editing your photo by tapping up there. Let's say you want red, and then circle something or say hi. So it's pretty interesting. Again, I don't see why the average person would find this extremely useful, or what uses the average person would have for this. But if you're somebody who works in different fields, this might become useful for you. Another thing that you can do, and you can do this from any screen in the phone, is bring up the quick menu. Again, you hold down the button and you double tap and hold, and it brings up a quick memo, excuse me, not quick menu, a quick memo where you can jot down notes. Say we need to remind ourselves to get milk. You'll say get milk. Now the writing, when you're writing with the pen, I will say it doesn't feel 100% natural, but it doesn't feel bad either. It keeps up with the pen strokes pretty well. It's only slightly behind. Whether you write fast or slow, it still keeps up pretty much the same. Every now and again, you might have it where it kind of lags behind just a tad, but it'll catch right back up, and you might not see that again for another hour, just depending on how frequently you're using it. So I have no real complaints as far as writing it. So writing with it. So let's just write some more from the store. And then you can just hit save. Now that's a quick memo. You can do that from any screen, so that's pretty neat, and it shows up in the S Memo app. And there's our note there. Get milk from the store. So now that could come in handy for someone if they wanted to jot down a quick note. That part I can see some use for. But again, it's not something you would use all the time, but I could see at least some practicality in that. Now, another S Pen function would be to go back a screen. So you can hold the button again and you swipe to the left and it goes back. Now, if you're in an app, it'll close that app down, or at least move it out of the way and go to whatever you were at before that. Now you can also go back to the home screen by, again, holding the button and scroll down with it, and you'll go back to the home screen. You can use it to bring up the menu by holding the button and swiping up, and voila, you're at the menu. So those are the features of the S Pen. Again, not overly useful, a little bit gimmicky for me, but again, depending on the field that you're working in, you might find some usefulness for it, some practicality. For the average person though, I doubt they'll be using the S Pen too frequently. I just don't see it as being a killer feature or quite frankly a very useful feature for the average person. Now, another gripe that I have with the phone is that there is no option to disable LTE. If you go into your settings, when you look in wireless, there's no reference to LTE at all. So basically, if you're in an LTE area, you're going to be using LTE. If you're not, hopefully it's not going to continue cycling and needlessly killing the battery. I don't know what the effect of the battery or the effect on the battery is from LTE not being able to be disabled, but I would venture to guess that if you could disable it, you could probably save more battery, especially considering that it has such a massive battery inside of it. I probably would not use it. HSPA is just fine. LTE to me is not overly useful for the reasons that AT&T is going to limit the amount of bandwidth that you can use anyway. So that's kind of an issue that I have with it. Another issue that I have is the lock screen. I don't particularly care for the lock screen. It's not awful. It's not good. Basically, when you swipe, as you can see, there's no movement there. The screen does not respond. It just shows an icon there. But when you do it quickly, it does it so fast that you never really see anything. So it doesn't really feel like you're doing anything. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel intuitive. It just kind of feels like they just slapped that on there. I'm assuming that perhaps they might have put that there because of the lawsuits going on with Apple. I'm not sure. That's just my speculation. But the lock screen that they have there, I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. I prefer something that gives me a little more visual feedback with my touches. That one does not have that. So that's a little bit of a gripe that I have with it. But overall, I find it to be a very good device. It's very snappy. It doesn't lag. It's quite responsive. I'm loving the screen real estate. It's fantastic. It's unrivaled. And the screen is beautiful. HD screen, 5.3 inches. Watching movies on it is going to be fantastic. Web browsing, wow. I mean, to have that much screen and browsing the web is great. And this is just on Gingerbread. The word is that when the ice cream sandwich update comes, that the browser will then also have a full screen option, so you'll be able to take advantage of 100% of the screen real estate. So that's going to really be nice. So the size of the device is its biggest strength, I would definitely say. Now, that being said, some people will not like the device because of the size. Because like I said, this is a large device. It definitely is. Make no mistake. Holding it in my hand the same way that I would normally hold a phone, you know, I am not going to get all the way to that upper left corner. So one-handed operation is definitely out the window. So if you're somebody who's looking for one-handed operation, this isn't the device for you. If you're somebody who is big on screen real estate, this is perfect. You won't find anything better. Screen is fantastic, HD resolution. You have no issues on the screen at all. So if you're somebody who's big on screen real estate, big on web browsing, that sort of thing, this is your phone right here. If you're somebody who's looking for something compact, this isn't your phone. Now, I will say that despite its size, it does fit into a pocket comfortably. It doesn't present any unsightly bulges or anything like that. It's not uncomfortable to have in your pocket. It fits. So if you're worried about that, don't worry about that. You'll be fine. Overall, I give this device probably 9 out of 10, I would say. And if it had ice cream sandwich, it might even get a 10. It's up there. It's a nice, definitely a nice device. I have no complaints with it, really, besides the little small gripes that I did have. So that being said, I suggest if you're interested in it, go take a look at it, take it home, play with it. You won't regret it. That being said, thanks for watching. You guys have a good one.